Thanks for tuning in to another stream by your host, Sigma Jones. First and foremost, just want to give a shout out to the subscribers. Thanks for listening in. Thanks for tuning in. We truly appreciate the love and support. Hope you gentlemen are doing well on tonight. What's good, Little Rock? And also shout out to Duke of Sardines, the retro guy, that retro guy. So hope you all are doing well. This is a surprise stream. I have been meaning to do a culture stream for a while and finally got to doing it tonight. But you can blame SKC for this stream because he was one of the inspirations for why I decided to do a culture stream for tonight. And so let's get right into it. So for the gentlemen out there, hopefully you have a notebook and a number 2 pencil because you would definitely be taking notes tonight. Shout out to JJ Wilson. Yep, this was a surprise stream. Like I said, I haven't done one of these in a while as far as a culture stream, so I figured I'd get one in. But you guys are in for a little lesson for tonight. So, like I said, grab a notebook, number 2 pencil, and let's get right into it. So, what inspired part of this stream? Well, there have been some talks, and it's not like old information and everything. But it does ties into my belief of globalism versus tribalism. And there's this notion that if you don't make more than at least $60,000 a year, somehow you're not a ground mover or an earth shaker, so to speak. You don't have that much power and convey, which I find that to be a bit strange because $60,000 in US dollars definitely brings a lot of weight on a global scale. May not be much to say a millionaire or even somebody making 6 figures, but rest assured, if you're making a 60,000 or above, you're definitely, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. So I decided, what? Let's do some basic economics. Let's kind of look at some salaries and compare it on a global scale. So without further ado, I did pull out some handy dandy work. So let me go ahead and share the screen here. Okay. Now, some of you may have remembered this calculator, the global wage calculator. This is one of the calculators we're going to be using tonight. And then I'm also going to use this percentile calculator later on that talks about how rich am I. And we're pretty much going to break it down step by step to see, for those who make a certain amount of wages, how do they compare on a global scale? Because remember, we're teaching globalism here, not tribalism. So I decided, okay, let's start off with the minimum salary here in the United States. Well, what would that be? Well, to start off, you have to first check what is the minimum wage here in the United States. So doing some Google search, we see that the minimum wage here in the United States is $7.25. Okay, so let's get the calculator. And we're going to first use a regular calculator because we're going to convert this wage over to a salary, and we're going to do it by a bi-weekly pay scale. So let's bring it back up. So right now we're going to put in $7.25, And we're going to multiply that by 80. So right now, for a 2 weeks pay period, that's $580. And that's before taxes. Now, let's take that number and multiply it by 26. Because on a bi-weekly pay scale, is 26 weeks on a payroll calendar. So 580 times 26. That means the salary for that pay rate is $15,080. Okay, fair enough. So you could say, as far as the salary of a minimum wage, you're looking at $15,080. Perfect. So let's take this number and let's punch it into our global wage calculator. So you're in the United States, mark that as yes. And the wage that we just calculated, 15,080. All right. So it says right here, you earn 34% of your country's average annual wage, which the annual wage in America is $44,952. And on a global scale, you earn 74% of the world's average annual wage, which is $20,328. So let's compare your salary. So your salary is right here. So looks like you make more than Indonesia, you make more than India, you make more than Mexico, China, Brazil, but now you don't make more than Russia. Turkey averages 17,000. Italy averages 32,000. The UK 33,000. South Africa 34,000. Japan 35,000. Australia 37,000. France 37,000. Canada 38,000. South Korea 38,000. Saudi Arabia 40,000. Germany 40,000. And of course the United States, which we just calculated, is 44,000. Almost to 45,000. So when you looking at this, even at minimum wage, you're still doing good compared to at least 5 other countries: Indonesia, India, China, Mexico, and Brazil. So it looks like a brother that is making this minimum wage, yeah, on a global scale, he's doing pretty good compared to at least 5 different countries. Now, let's take the other calculator, and now we're going to calculate how the numbers compare to percentile. So we're going to take the same wage, 15,080. We're going to assume you're your only adult, you have no children or no wife and kids. So we calculate, and pretty much the numbers are roughly the same. There are at least 13.7 people that are richer than you, and you're actually richer than at least 86.3% of the globe. And right there, the minimum salary globally is roughly around a little over 26,000. So not bad, but the calculator definitely, this is telling you this is where you compare on a global scale. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so that's just for minimum wage, which minimum wage here in America is $7.25. But now in other states, minimum wage could be more than that. For example, here in America, here in Arizona, minimum wage is $12 an hour. So let's go ahead and calculate the minimum wage for that. So let me refresh this page. Go back to default. Okay, so now we're going to look at $12 an hour. So let's clear. Here we go. So $12 an hour. Multiply that by 80. You get $960. Multiply that number by 26. Your annual salary on $12 an hour is $24,960 a year. That's before taxes. So, okay, with that new number, let's look to see what that compares globally. So take this number. We now got 24,960. Now let's see how that compares. That kind of increases your numbers a little bit. That is correct, Wagner. Minimum wage in America is poverty wage. Pretty much, but even with minimum wage, you're still doing pretty good then compared to at least 5 other countries based on this calculator. Now, for this one, since we now have minimum wage of $12 an hour, and this essentially puts you in this bracket. So as of right now, you now make more money than the average person in these countries. So Indonesia, India, Mexico, China, Brazil, Russia, and Turkey. And so with these other countries, you're still below their average, but at least from a salary perspective, 24,000, you're doing pretty good compared to 7 other countries. So now let's look at how rich would you be from a percentile. So 24,960, 1 adult, 0 children. So right now, there's only 6.6% of the world's population that have more money than yourself, but at the same time, you're now richer than 93.4% of the world. So in essence, you're now in the 6% of the world's population of the elites. Congratulations. And like I said, the minimum wage for the average household around the world is barely over $2,500. And then this is your income here. Okay, fair enough. So now, let's say we have a look at IT and the salaries for those particular jobs. Now, I know for IT, it really depends on far as like the state where you're coming from. But just for the sake of the calculators here, we're going to do an entry-level position for IT, which usually is help desk or desk side support. Now, I'm just going to take a number, and based on my experience, when I was working help desk, my position was paying me roughly $42,000 a year. So we're going to go based off of those numbers. All right, so let's have a look. So I want to say, I think I was making $20 an hour. So let's do 20 times 80. That's $1,600. Yep, $1,600 for a bi-weekly payroll. Times that number by 26. Let's see. I think we're almost close. let's try $20.25. So times 80 and then multiply by 26. Here we go. So this would be the equivalent of a salary that I was making as IT help desk. So $42,120 a year. So let's now see how that compares. So we're going to take that number, 42,120. All right. Now, this is where the numbers get pretty interesting. Just by working IT of at least 42,000 a year, look at how many countries you now surpass of the average salary. You now make more than Italy, the average person there, the average person in the United Kingdom, South Africa, Japan, Australia, France, Canada, South Korea, Saudi Arabia, and even Germany. Only in America is the average person making slightly more than yourself. Okay, now let's see how that number compares on a global scale. Salute to you, Paul. So 42,120. Calculate that. So right now, based off of that wage, only 2.3% of the world's population has more money than yourself. Likewise, you have more money than 97.7% of the world's population. So congratulations, you're now part of the 2.3% of the elites, the global elites, just by making 42,000 a year. Writer said, I hope you was living in New York, you would be eating canned tuna on that salary in New York City. Well, that's why I said, Watner, this is based on what is the salary, the average salary as far as within the states. Now, any brother that's working entry level IT in New York, they would have to tell me as far as what was their salary during that time. So I was mainly going based off of my number. But even then, so if you're making 42,000, if you're struggling in New York City, because obviously the cost of living is much higher in metropolitan cities, if you were to go to the suburbs or the rural environments throughout the United States, 42,000 can definitely get you way farther. Way farther. So now we're going to look at the main subject of the night. So myself, I just got a new promotion working a new IT position, and the salary for that is pretty much 60,000. So I said, with $60,000, what would that put me on the global scale? So let's have a look. Put 60,000. So pretty much, as you see, here is my salary up here, and this is where the rest of the world is at. So you make 19 times more than a teacher in Ethiopia. You make 9 times more than a cleaner in Thailand, 6 times more than a driver in South Africa, twice that of a health professional in Greece, and you're roughly on par with an admin manager or a CEO. So now let's go have a look at it from the global calculator. What that gives you. So 60 grand. So with 60 grand, only 1% of the world's population has more money than myself. But I make more than 99% of the world's population. So That now puts me in the 1 percentile of the elites of the globe just by having $60,000. And it shows here your income is more than 21.3 times the global median. So the next time somebody tells you that making 60 grand doesn't mean much, let them know, well, on a global scale, that actually puts me in league with the 1 percentile. So I'm now part of the global elites. So yeah. All right, let me check the comments here. Oh, thanks, JJ. Writer say, yep, especially down south, 42 grand go really far. Yep, that's true. And that's where guys got to understand, where do they stand on a global level. To me, that's the thing. I want a lot of you guys, no matter what background, you really got to think on a global scale. Where do you see it? Where do you have your niche? Because once you think from a global scale, you'll be very surprised how far you can go. Almost limitless. And so those calculators, definitely I would recommend you guys to kind of see where you stand on a global scale, how you compare to other countries that you visit and everything. Because remember, the American dollar definitely goes a long way. Even in countries that make more money than yourself on average, you could probably still stretch the dollar in those particular countries. But again, the higher your income compared to these countries and cultures, the more leverage and freedom you'll have traveling in those cultures and those other countries. So that was that lesson. Now let's move on to the next lesson. And this one kind of ties in with my thing when it comes down to Americans and traveling. And you have a lot of Americans who, for some reason, they feel like America is the end all be all. Like, you don't need to know about other countries and cultures because you're from America, and that should be it. So I found an article of a guy who talks about why Americans simply don't travel. And it's actually a pretty interesting read that I'm going to be sharing with you guys right now. So the title is called Why Americans Don't Travel Overseas. This was posted back in October of 2017. And it says, we've all heard the alarming statistic. Only 40% of Americans own a passport. That number is rising, but only because Americans are now required to show a passport when going to Mexico and Canada. Vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin first got her passport last year and has only traveled overseas to military bases in Iraq and Germany. In fact, she's implied that traveling is for the rich. Quote, I'm not one of those who maybe come from a background of, kids who perhaps graduate college and their parents get them a passport and give them a backpack and say, go off and travel the world. No, I worked all my life. I was not part of, I guess, that culture. Tisk tisk. So why is it that the world's superpower, a country with 300 million people, turns a blind eye to the rest of the planet, and political figures taught their lack of overseas travel as a plus? I believe there are a few reasons. First, there's size. Forget about post 9/11 politics for just a moment. Most family vacations in America are to other parts of America. Why is that? Because the US takes up the width and a lot of the height of a whole continent. And we have all the world's environments in our states. Want to go to the beaches? Head to Florida. The tropics? Hawaii. The desert? Arizona. Cold tundra? Alaska. Temperate forests? Washington. This attitude about America having all you need is best summed up by a response I got from a friend in Iowa. Why would you go to Thailand? It's far and scary. If you want beaches, just go to Florida. Americans simply don't see the need to go anywhere else when they can do it all in their own country, especially when they are afraid of the world. Which brings me to the second part. Fear. Americans are just scared of the world. I mean, really scared. Maybe even petrified. In this post 9/11 world, Americans have been taught that the world is a big, frightening place. There are terrorists outside every hotel waiting to kidnap you. People don't like you because you're American. The world is violent. It's poor. It's dirty. It's savage. Canada and Europe are okay, but if you go there, they'll still be rude to you because you're an American. No one likes us. Even before 9/11, the media created an environment of fear. If it bleeds, it leads, right? Prior to 9/11, the media played up violence at home and abroad. Pictures of riots in foreign streets, threats against Americans, and general violence were all played up to portray a volatile and unsafe world. After 9/11, it only got worse. Politicians now tell us they hate you, as former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani did during his campaign. It's us versus them. Bombarded by this for decades, Americans think this myth is reality and simply don't want to leave the United States. People always ask me why I want to leave the US to travel. Isn't the US just as good? No one likes us out there, people say. To Americans, the world is a scary place, and it's a perception only reinforced by the media and politicians. And finally, it's because of cultural ignorance. Yes, I said it. Americans are ignorant. Ignorant as they simply don't know what's going on outside their own borders. Not that they're dumb. I don't blame them, really. When you're told the world is scary, why would you want to care about it? Why would you want to go places where they supposedly want to kill you? So Americans don't put an emphasis on learning about the world. We don't take languages. We avoid overseas programs. And we don't talk about our world in schools. Our schools teach one foreign language, Spanish. And that's only because there's a large Spanish-speaking population in the country, not because we want to go to Spain, or Mexico's right next door. The media doesn't focus on the world unless it relates to something bad. And our politicians encourages us to erect walls, not break down barriers. Some people argue that it's because America is far from the rest of the world, as if there is an insurmountable distance to go to places. However, New Zealand is farther geographically from everything else. Yet New Zealanders are encouraged to go out and explore the world. In the age of the internet, Twitter, YouTube, and even airplanes, it's easy to go places. Distance is no excuse. Americans don't travel because of culture, not location. It's not universal. There are plenty of Americans out there exploring the world and breaking down cultural barriers. They come back, dispel myths, and encourage their friends to become more aware of the world. But even in the more liberal places in America, you see the attitude that America is the world's only safe country and that most of the world is pretty scary. Americans have an image of the world that is totally divorced from reality. The sad irony is that we created the world we are so afraid of. America's push for a globalized world brought many players onto the stage. It helped the Chinese dragon emerge from its cage, brought India into the game, helped Brazil's economy grow, and tore down communism. Now, we look at the world and are terrified that we no longer understand it or our place in it. Instead of trying to learn more, we erect barriers and bury our heads in the sand. Yet I'm hopeful. The future of the world requires more integration, and young Americans growing up in this post 9/11 environment are actually more interested in learning about other countries than shunning them. They want to travel and explore the world. I think the future will be bright, as long as political leaders don't wall us off completely before then. Wise words indeed. Alright, let's check. Matter as, is learning English in demand in Japan and South Korea? I can't really say for sure for Korea, Watner, but I can definitely say in Japan, English is the second most language that is being taught over there. There's a lot, especially in my time in Tokyo, there were a lot of English posters, English signs, and everything. When you go to restaurants, they'll have English on the menu and whatnot. So I can definitely say for sure from Japan, they definitely are pushing for more English language. North America is a beautiful continent, though. Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, there's more to the world besides North America. You know, I give props that, yeah, North America is very cool to travel and see things, but hey, there's other places too to travel. So let's not just be ignorant about just one continent. Retro Guy says we can't stay in a box forever. Exactly. And that's really what I want you guys to really emphasize into your lifestyle. Especially if you're taking a lifestyle of SYSBM, you have to be a global minded person. You can't just be stuck in a box and feel like your environment is the only thing you know, is the only thing that will get you by. It's the only thing that you feel like that's your world. But you got to get out of that comfort zone and realize there's a huge planet outside of your environment. There's a huge world outside of where you live in. Rather than just reading about these places from books, watching it on television, reading about them on the internet, why not decide for yourself, you know what? I'm going to go to that particular country and I'm going to see what it's like being there for my own self. Writer says, okay, I was thinking starting an online ESL company to teach Japanese kids English. I'm pretty sure there's many possibilities going that route. So hats off to you on creating a company like that. So one thing I want to emphasize too with guys who want to be global minded, understand too that you're going to meet other folks who are also global minded like yourself, and especially women. And this is where we kind of now go a little bit on the SYSBM side to talk about the differences women deal with from genetics and culture. And so I have an article where we're going to talk about how women choose across genetics and culture. pull it up now. One moment. Okay, so this article from Psychology Today is titled Women's Make Choices Across Cultures. Some aspects of women's preferences are universal, and others vary by culture. So let's get into this. I'm sure that many men throughout the ages have been and will continue to be perplexed by women's preference for one man over the other, especially if they are this other man. Biologists have been studying females' mate choices since Darwin's Descent of Man and selection in relation to sex, and continue to debate why females prefer one male over another. In some cases, the male traits that drive female choices appear to be relatively arbitrary, but generally, females choose males that will benefit them and their offspring in some way. The benefits are typically genetic, including passing advantageous immune system genes to their offspring, or behavioral. The latter includes protection from predators or from harassment by members of the same species, as well as providing food or other material resources, i.e. like nests, to offspring and sometimes to the female. Among primates, females prefer males that will protect them and their offspring from harassment by other males, and sometimes females. Humans are the only primate species in which men consistently provide some type of material resources to their wives and children, which makes men who can and are willing to provide these resources particularly valuable from the perspective of female choice. Before we get into some of the details of these choices, I note that in traditional cultures, marriage choices are much more deeply intertwined with family and wider social dynamics than they are in liberal Western countries. Apostolou's research on marriage types across 190 hunter-gatherer societies illustrates this dynamic. Here, marriages were classified into 4 categories based on who made the decision. Specifically, parental arrangement, kin arrangement, i.e. brother or uncle, courtship with parental approval, and free choice courtship. Each society was classified in terms of its most common or primary marriage type, and whether or not any of the other marriage types occurred, which were classified as secondary. Overall, parents arranged most of the marriages in 70% of these societies, and free choice courtship was the primary marriage type in only 4% of them. Unconstrained choice of marriage partner, primary or secondary, was not reported for 4 out of 5 of the hunter-gatherer societies. The tendency of parents or other kin to arrange marriage is even stronger in agricultural and pastoral communities. There are many reasons underlying parents' choice of one marriage partner or another, such as building relationships between kin groups, and these include the resources the would-be groom can provide to the bride and her children. The specifics of the resources, from cows to cash, can vary from one context to another, depending on which of these contributes to women's ability to support their children in the local context. A similar pattern emerges when a woman's choice of a groom is not unduly influenced by her parents or by other kin, which is the norm in liberal Western countries and a few others. The bottom line is that women prefer culturally successful men, those who have social influence and control over culturally important resources, whatever these may be, like access to farmable land, livestock, or a nice income. These are resources that can be directly transferred from the man to his wife, who then has some control over how they're being used. So a degree from a fancy college might be a would-be bride's attention, might get a would-be bride's attention, but in and of itself is not enough if it's not associated with employment or prospective employment in a well-paying occupation. On top of providing access to transferable and cultural important resources, women prefer men who are a few years older than they are, likely because older men are generally more socially and economically established than are the younger ones. The preference for somewhat older, culturally successful men is a universal feature of women's mate preferences, but their preference for other traits can vary from one context to the next. However, this cross-cultural variation is not arbitrary and varies with the trade-offs associated with emphasizing one trait more than others, and the importance of this mix of traits in the woman's current circumstances. These trade-offs reflect the reality that the ideal husband is not to be found, but there are good enough husbands out there, each of whom has some mix of positive and not so positive traits. For instance, one prospective husband might be well educated and have an impressive and well-paying job, but he might also be sporting an equally impressive beer belly. The latter is not high on the list of women's preferred traits in a would-be husband, but is often a tolerable cost if the man had other things to offer. The most interesting cross-cultural variation are found for women's preferences for men's personal attributes, i.e. personality, and physical traits. Although a would-be husband's material resources are always important to some extent, they are less important in countries with a well-developed social safety net, and in countries in which women have political and social influence and some financial independence. The gist is that when economic supports are provided by sources outside of the marital relationship, women downgrade the importance of a prospective mate's financial prospects and focus more on other traits, especially the interpersonal one, like cooperative sense of humor, that make for a satisfying marital relationship. The latter is particularly important among educated adults in these cultures because the bride and groom are often separated from their wider network of kin support due to jobs that require them to move away from this network. In this situation, the marital relationship is a stronger source of social support than it is in many other contexts. It's not that women in these other contexts don't value these traits. It's just that other factors, such as ambition and financial prospects, are prioritized. It's not surprising that women also prefer handsome and physically fit husbands, but whether these are priorities or luxuries depends on where they live. In wealthy countries with well-nourished populations and access to modern medicine, it is often difficult to tell if the man, especially when they're young, has any underlying health problems. These are often masked by the reduction of health risk, i.e. lower risk of serious infectious disease in these contexts. A more realistic assessment of the relationship between physical attractiveness and health can be found in studies conducted in developing countries and in more traditional cultures. Here, men are much more variable in their overall health, and women's mate preferences are more strongly related to men's physical attractiveness and masculinity than they are in wealthy countries. In these more natural contexts, chronic poor nutrition and disease are associated with shorter stature, less muscle mass, and poor physical fitness in adolescent boys and men. In these contexts, women's focus on the physical traits of a would-be groom makes sense, especially if the man needs to be engaged in strenuous physical activities just to support the family. It's not a coincidence that these are many of the same traits that women in wealthy nations find attractive in men, even when these traits are only weakly related to the health of the young man in these nations. In other words, even though these traits aren't always a priority in women's make choices, they still find them attractive and would prefer them in a would-be husband. The bottom line is that women prefer somewhat older and socially established men who have the same level of access to culturally important resources and are willing to transfer these resources to the woman and her children. In contexts in which the family lives away from the extended family, the marital relationship becomes a central source of social support, and thus women prefer men who are able to develop and maintain friendly and supportive relationships. When a man's contribution to the family are dependent on his physical fitness, women prefer muscular and physically fit men. In other words, some aspect of women's preferences fluctuate from one context to the next. But whatever the context, they prioritize traits that will benefit them and their family in the long run. Alright, so let's check the chat here. Jay Wolf, good to see you, sir. Haha, straight shooter. He says, wait, does he mean that women are more attracted to guys who are in shape with a decent job? Well, based on this psychology report, that's what they're saying. And Ace, good to see you, sir. All right. So the thing that I want to emphasize from that particular article is there are things that are universal when it comes to female choices. Like, say, for example, height. For the most part, women like a man who's taller than them. That's universal. Now, once you go into other cultures, that's where you'll start to see what the women there prefer in a husband or at least a boyfriend. And this is why it's important for you as an SYSBM practitioner who's also becoming a globalist. You got to understand that women from other cultures may prefer a guy just based off of her upbringing. She may want a guy who's more stable and more protective. One moment. All right. She may want a guy who is more protective and can be there for the family and everything. Or you may find one who just wants to be a social butterfly. Again, you as the globalist SYSBM practitioner, you got to be able to know what you want in a partner and what you tolerate and will not tolerate. So this now leads to story time, because I do have a story to share in relation to this particular article. I have a college buddy of mine. For context, we will nickname him LT. Now, LT is a very lovable guy. This is a dude where when I say he is a man's man, this dude will give you the shirt off his back. And he is always there for his compadres. And really, there's not a single bad personality about him, at least from my perspective, being his friend. And he definitely went on to do great things in college. He got a degree in computer science. He's currently working on his master's at the moment. He went and bought him a 24,000 square feet, a 2,400 square feet home. Has a nice job working in information security. The dude is pretty much hitting on all cylinders. So LT is the man. And I'm pretty sure the women who are listening to him, listening to the stream, hearing about his personality, the type of job he works, have his own car, his own place, they probably saying, this guy must be pretty cool. Yes, he is. But now, what if I told you that LT is a Chinese American? And not only that, what if I told you he's also 5'2"? Now that kind of changes things, don't it? And let me tell you, and if LT was on the stream, he would tell you as well. His dating life during the early years of his college sucked. And I mean, it sucked badly. This dude pretty much, he almost became black pill. I'll put it like that. There was a girl he was interested in back in college who was also Chinese American. But no matter what he did or what he said, this girl just was not interested in him. And in fact, one time while he wasn't around, I asked this girl, like, hey, what do you think of LT? And without skipping a beat, she quickly tells me, oh, LT's just a friend. No more, no less. And it was like, wow. All of these advances this dude is portraying. The dude is bettering himself. He's going off far, doing many great things. But in the eyes of a woman who come from a similar background as him, she only saw him as a friend. But that's not the end of the story. So halfway through our college years, there was a woman who started to fancy LT. And we'll call her Ruby. Now, the crazy thing about Ruby is that she's a Latina. Now, you would think, ethnically or culturally speaking, Latinas are not per se into short guys like that. Or at the very least, guys who don't have that macho-ness to them. And this is just going off of observations and everything. But no. This girl, Ruby, was head over heels in love with LT. I mean, you had a girl who is, she's, slightly taller than him, probably at 5'4". But she thought the world of LT. I can tell you on her Facebook page, she would post pictures and stories about LT. Me and LT went and did this. Me and LT went to did that. And I'm thinking to myself, could a budding relationship happen between these two. And sure enough, LT took the plunge and they started going out. They became boyfriend and girlfriend. And then, right before they graduated, he proposed to her. And they just got married 2 years ago. And so now LT, not only he has his own house, has his own car, has a nice paying job, he's now a married man. So what am I getting at with this story? The thing is this. Had LT had a more tribalistic mindset, if he had made it in his mind that no matter what, I only want my woman to be of my same phenotype. She's got to come from the same background as me. Ethnicity, culture, whatever. The children have to look like me. If he had that tribal mindset, I guarantee you, he would still be single to this day. Now, don't get me wrong. If he had that mindset, he is all entitled to that tribalistic mindset. But he would have to understand that genetically, he has a lot going against him. And especially when those genetics are not top choices in a Western culture like America, he definitely was going to be struggling. But because LT took on a global mindset and realized that the world is forever changing, you either get with the times or you get left behind. And he decided, you know what? This girl Ruby loves me. She truly cares about me. And I find her particularly attractive. I'm going to make it happen. And to put the icing on the cake, they're now expecting. So now you're going to have a little boy or a little girl who's going to come from a Chinese and Latina background, and with the intelligence of both of their parents, this child is definitely going to be making waves from a multicultural standpoint. So again, perfect proof of globalism. Perfect proof that when you expand your horizon and you expand your options and preferences, you'd be surprised who you might run into and who would actually be backing up on your corner. Yeah, Jay Wolf, it is definitely something. Maybe had to think too. Maybe had to think as well. And even black girls. So, let's go ahead and wrap this up. I do have one more article. And the story from LT actually ties into this next article. Now, let me just preface by saying this. If you're a guy who you have no intentions of having a wife and kids, and you have no intentions of, so to speak, passing on your genetics to the next generation, if you're one that's only interested in short-term relationships and all, this next article you can go ahead and bypass. It doesn't relate to you. However, oh, hold on a second. Black girls. Hey, I'm pretty sure there are a lot of women out there with curly hair. By all means, brother, you go and find that. I'm just saying, just make sure you keep your options open. That's all. He says, and from your story, did Ruby approach Mr. T? So his nickname is LT. So L is in Larry, T is in Thomas. And To be quite honest, yes, she was the one that was making her intentions known to LT. She was very interested in him. At first, he was kind of a little bit hesitant. This a girl that was all into him and everything, but she started, working her magic, whatever you could say, on him, and he slowly came around, and they're now a happy couple. So again, like I said, if you're a brother who don't care about genetics, you don't care about family and having good genes and everything, you don't want the wife and kids and all, you can completely disregard to this article. But however, if you're a brother or any man out there who seriously want to have his own children, wife and kids, then you definitely want to pay attention to this next article. This one will definitely make you think twice with some of the women that some of y'all are interested in. Suo 1987. Hey Sigma Jones, new to your channel and watch your videos. Hey, glad to have you here. Always glad to have newcomers around. Straight shooter. If she can't use your comb, don't bring her home. Oh my goodness. How many times have we heard of that? Let's see. Black curls. Dudes aren't used to women showing interest like that. They're used to having too cold approach. Exactly. And honestly, like, LT kind of saw the difference between a woman who had no interest in him versus a woman who, from the jump, she was all there for him. Through the good and the bad, she was there for him in Ruby. And to me, that's what happens when you have a more global mindset. Hate thy neighbor. You're crazy having wife and kids in America. Need your head examined though. Well, this is why this next article will make you kind of see what type of women you're dealing with and why you should be very careful putting your seed in certain type of women. Can't find your Free Avengers channel. Right. Actually, Suo, I discontinued my Free Avengers channel. That's no longer available. Pretty much I'm focusing all of my energy on the YouTube side since I'm now taking a different direction. But hey, still glad to have you here. Where can I find your videos on Seattle and Vancouver? You know what? I'll probably look at uploading those here eventually on YouTube. So definitely they'll be coming down the docket. Okay, so let me bring up this next article so we can round this lesson for tonight. Okay, this next one talks about what are daddy issues and how can you recognize them in a partner. Are your relationship problems with your wife or girlfriend related to her father? Some key points we're going to touch on. Number one, people use the phrase daddy issues to refer to father-daughter relationships that have a negative impact on the way a woman relates to men. Number two, women with daddy issues do not have specific symptoms, but common behaviors include having trouble trusting men and being jealous. Number three, women whose fathers are physically or emotionally absent tend to have troubled romantic relationships and marriages, research shows. So let's get into this. Are you involved with a woman with daddy issues? As a boyfriend or husband, how do you know if the relationship problems you're having with your girlfriend or wife are related to her daddy issues? Or as a woman, how do you help your brothers or male friends recognize the kinds of problems they might encounter with women who did not have a supportive, loving, meaningful relationship with their dads while they were growing up? The phrase daddy issues doesn't have a specific definition with a specific list of symptoms. The term simply means that certain kinds of father-daughter relationships have a negative impact on the way the woman relates to men in her life, particularly the men she is romantically involved with. Decades of research that I discuss in my book, Improving Father-Daughter Relationships, a guide for women and their dads, shows that women whose fathers are physically or emotionally absent and not supportive or involved in their lives have more troubled romantic relationships and marriages than women who were well fathered throughout childhood. So, common signs of daddy issues. Let's pay close attention. How do these poorly fathered or father-deprived women generally behave in their romantic relationships with men? Let's count the waves. Having a hard time trusting men. Suspicious and excessively jealous. Constantly testing his love. Overly needy for attention and validation. Uncomfortable with you having any female friends. Doesn't know how to work through relationship problems or how to express anger effectively, i.e., she likes to pout, cry, rant, walk away, clam up. She expects a man to create happiness for her and take care of her financially like a father. She enjoys and creates drama. Everything is a big deal, a crisis, a drama. Can't separate small, unimportant situations or relationship issues from the really important ones. She lacks self-confidence, constantly striving to feel better about herself. She has abandonment issues. I'll dump you before you dump me. She chooses emotionally distant and unavailable men. She overly focuses on getting the attention of other men, i.e., overly flirtatious. She can't commit to relationships or far too eager for a quick commitment. She makes many negative assumptions about men as a group. And last but not least, she uses sex to get attention and affirm her self-worth. Sounds familiar? The more of these relationship problems she has, the more likely it is that her relationship with her father was not supportive, communicative, comfortable, or meaningful. As a boyfriend or husband, my book can serve as a stop, look, and listen alert system to help you find out more about how women's relationships with their dads can end up affecting your relationship with her. Her past with her dad is her past. But that past also affects your life in the present and in the future. Okay. Black girls, that's funny. They don't go out of their way to help their male relatives. JJ says, oh yeah, that drama is a red flag. And Dr. Phoenix. If the good doctor himself is giving a thumbs up, that means this article definitely knows what it's talking about. Black Girl says the article should just bluntly say she's a Western woman. Pretty much. And this is where, in fact, Jay Wolf just said it best. The past will tell you your future. Exactly. And that's where I'm getting at. See, this is why I say if you're serious about having a family, and I'm talking about starting from scratch, you want your own kids, you want them to be biologically yours, and, excuse me, you want a woman that will be there for you, not only for you, but also for the children. Well, let me just say this from personal experience, and I'm pretty sure there are those that are listening in the chat or in the replay that will probably share the same sentiment. Her relationship with her father is going to be an indicator of how she's going to treat you. If her father was somebody who she just completely walks over, and her father had no spine or backbone, guess what? She's going to believe that she could do no wrong dealing with you. And it gets worse if she didn't even have a father in her life. So if she did have a father in her life, guess what? She's going to base how men are from watching how her mother deals with men. And most of the time, that's not a good thing. And the same can also be said for men. Now, if a woman wants to know how she's going to be treated in a relationship, all she has to do is look at how he treats his mother. And similar signs are there. If the mother is abusive, then guess what? Chances are he's going to be abusive towards women. If he has no mother in his life, there's a very good chance he's probably not going to be very kind or be affectionate towards women. But that's a whole different subject on the male side. We're focusing on the female side. Why do I say that? Because you, as the practitioner and a man who's going to be global, if you're serious about having your own family, this is something you must take seriously. I don't care what any guy tells you. If you cannot properly vet a woman to know if she is best suited to be a wife and a mother, let me tell you right now, don't even think about marriage. Don't even think about wife and kids. If you can't tell the difference, if you can't look at the small details of social dynamics, don't even bother about having wife and kids, and especially having kids. Because even if you go the route of the, what's it called? What's the talk nowadays? Some guys talk about it. It was just on the tip of my brain. Anyway, it have to come back to me. But if you think about, surrogacy. Even if you go the route of surrogacy, it would still be a major problem. It would still be a major problem with the children. This is why even I can't really advocate for it. Black Girl said it best. If you can't look at the details, you're not the sharpest knife in the drawer. Exactly. Even if you do find the exception, keep in mind you're living close to a nuclear reactor, meaning exposure for the kid and her. Well, hate thy neighbor, this is where culture comes into play. And this is where you will have to definitely... This is why, for a lot of brothers, I would not advocate marriage for them. In fact, I would definitely tell them, until you have a clear understanding of how to deal with people of other cultures and how to get along with people of other cultures, I would just simply say, don't look at marriage and family. just simply don't. Because you'll be in a world of hurt if you don't have the slightest clue of how to deal with people from other cultures. Because here's the thing, there are women out there who are more than happy being wives and mothers. They're more than happy to do that. But if you as a man cannot find that difference in the details, you're only going to put yourself in a world of hurt. So that's really what I'm getting at with this article. And the reason why I brought up this article is I was recently talking with Miss Kagome. And we were recently talking about her family and everything. And I noticed she talks very highly about her father. She has the utmost respect for her father. And that kind of told me right then and there, how she treated her father is pretty much how she's going to deal with me, which is cool. Cool indeed. 0. You can only vet under conditions of consequence. You can't do this under societal conditions because there's no way to measure it. Hence, you can't vet. Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is why, again, I will tell many men in general, if you don't know what you're doing, don't even think about it. Don't even let it cross your mind. Exactly. So you won't really find me being one to advocate marriage unless you really know what you're doing and you really have an understanding how to deal with other cultures, how to not be ignorant of other societies and everything, how to blend in and be accepted in other societies. If you can't get that down, I definitely would not advocate for marriage. You would do everybody a huge favor not getting involved if you don't know what you're doing. And this is why I'm glad 0 brought that up. If you're still dealing with women that for the most part in this society, a lot of them have daddy issues, yeah, you probably just want to take it elsewhere. Again, just my opinion, but to each his own. I can only lead you to the water, but at some point you're going to have to drink it for yourself. Okay, so that pretty much was my lesson. And I'm glad to see there's a lot going on in the chat and everything. So that tells you right then and there that lessons have been learned. J.J. Wilson said it best. Your mind should be like a sponge when learning new things, not like a rock where nothing can get in. I don't know, man. You got some dudes there. I think their brains was replaced with a rock, but that's a subject for another day. But okay, we have reached the 1 hour mark, so definitely would like to thank you guys for listening in on this cultural stream. Once again, take this lesson, do what you want with it. The only thing I can say is at least somebody told you. So I don't want to hear later on that, well, nobody told me about this. No, somebody did. You just wasn't paying attention. But in any case, thank you guys for listening in. Definitely appreciate the love and support. For those who were listening in on the War Room the other night, just know that the War Room now has a new channel. We just created it and sent it out on its way. So the chatbot has posted the link to the new channel. So if you haven't subscribed, definitely get a chance to subscribe there. Next month, we're going to start doing streams on that channel. But in the meantime, this channel will still be focused on the Black Ronin stuff. And also a few side videos like cultural streams and reflections of the inner man. So definitely stay tuned for that. We definitely have an episode of Black Ronus coming up this upcoming weekend. But again, want to thank you all for that. Okay, hold on a second. Zero says something. By that logic, no one knows what they're doing. I think under the best circumstances, you can't vet simply because you have no legal protection. Your vetting could be effective at the start, then later it's not. Doesn't mean it's wrong, just means two different things. Honestly, Zero, when I'm talking vetting, I'm mainly talking outside of America, but even then, that's, again, I'm at the point now where to a lot of these guys, to each their own. I can only give them the information that they can. But yeah, thanks, thanks for that reflection. So with that said, thanks you guys for tuning in. Until next time, this is the way.